This is CBC Here and Now.
If they deliver what's been promised, we should be through our entire population by late June, maybe the first week or so in July, with at least one shot.
Ramping up the vaccine rollout as thousands more doses are set to arrive.
She's been very gracious and dedicated to keeping us all safe and informed over the last year. So we thought we wanted to really acknowledge that.
An honor for Dr. Janice Fitzgerald on International Women's Day.
Yeah, well, might as well give it a go, right? 7-1.
I love his attitude.
Team Newfoundland and Labrador may have lost last night's game at the Briar, but skip Greg Smith still pulled off an impressive shot. Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Peter Cowan.
And I'm Carolyn Stokes. Well, today marked yet another day with a low number of new COVID cases in this province.
Yep, just 3 new cases of COVID tonight, all in the eastern region, and all are contacts of previous cases. The number of active cases continues to fall. With 6 recoveries today, there are now 84 active cases of COVID-19. 3 people remain in hospital, and all of those are in the ICU. Over the weekend, about 1,600 people took advantage of asymptomatic testing. Public Health is asking people who don't have any symptoms in the eastern region to book a test. Before they change the alert levels, they want to make sure there aren't more cases they haven't detected. So far, those tests have been negative. Dr. Janice Fitzgerald says she knows firsthand how easy the process is.
Very quick now to, between actually registering for an appointment and actually getting your appointment and getting your swab done. So a pretty quick turnaround from what I understand. I know my family and I all went out on Saturday and got tested. It was very quick. We had our results the next morning, and it was a very smooth affair.
Dr. Fitzgerald also gave an update on the healthcare worker at the St. Anthony Hospital who tested positive. She says they may never know how that person picked up COVID, but they're confident they didn't spread it.
Sometimes, as hard as we try, we cannot find the answers that we're looking for. That being said, all contacts of the individual have been identified and are isolating. There has been testing in the community, and we are confident that there is no onward spread of the virus this time. As always, it is a reminder that COVID can show up anywhere at any time.
Dr. Fitzgerald also confirmed any changes to alert levels will be announced on Friday, but if anyone in the eastern region was hoping to go directly from alert level 5 to 3, don't get your hopes up.
Don't anticipate that we will be skipping levels. The whole point of this and what we've heard certainly in other areas is that you need to reopen slowly and just, as people move about more, as more people are busy doing things, we need to make sure we take it slowly so that if we start to see a resurgence, it's not as intense as what we saw initially.
Now, when the alert levels change, some things may not. We'll hear why Dr. Fitzgerald is warning that team sports may not be back soon. That's a little later in the show.
Here's another warning. The health department is warning people about fraudsters trying to capitalize on the pandemic. The department says scammers are calling people and asking them to pay for their COVID-19 registration and vaccination. Now, those phone calls are a scam. Registration and vaccination are both free. Public Health is asking anyone who receives one of these phone calls to report it to the police. Meanwhile, the province is working on a plan to quickly vaccinate as many people as possible. Here Now's Mark Quinn reports.
Vaccinating hundreds of thousands of people is a massive undertaking, but of course Newfoundland and Labrador has done mass vaccinations before, and our health minister says that for most people, COVID vaccinations will use a booking program similar to the one that was used for the flu shots recently.
But once we get below 65 in terms of age groups, or get to 65, and we've done the higher risk people in phase 2, then we'll just simply say, if you're over the age of 18 and want to avail of a vaccine, register now.
Like the flu vaccination program, physicians expect to be involved in the COVID-19 vaccination program too, and they say they're looking forward to it.
We know our patients, we know who's at risk. I have been taking the opportunity, as have many of my colleagues, to have conversations with people about vaccination for several months now. I'll often end a visit by saying, now you're going to get your vaccine, right?
Pharmacists also expect they'll be part of the COVID vaccination effort. But in a statement, their association said pharmacies need a lot more clarity from the province on what the distribution, allocation, and overall logistics will look like. Newfoundland and Labrador has already received more than 40,000 doses of COVID vaccines, and according to the federal government, a lot more is on the way. By March 14th, this province is expected to receive 70,000 doses of the AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine. By March 28th, 18,300 doses of the Moderna COVID-19 vaccine. And by April 18th, we're expected to receive 71,370 doses of the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine. For all three, that's a total of 96,670 vaccine doses by mid-April. And those numbers don't include the Johnson & Johnson vaccine that's expected to be available sometime in April. Tens of thousands of people in this province have been vaccinated so far. And Haggie says there's reason to believe that everyone who's getting vaccinated will have at least one shot by the end of June or early July. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
But will the vaccine be a shot in the arm for tourism? The industry's reaction is mixed. Kinnear Knutson owns Dark Tickle Company on the Northern Peninsula. His tourism business makes wild berry jams and sauces with a cake, gift shop, and boat tour. He doesn't expect many staycationers because he's too far away from the bulk of the population. Meanwhile, Janet Denstead, who runs the Old Saltbox Company with vacation homes in Iceberg Alley, says she will be catering to locals.
Well, at this point, what we're focusing on is our staycationers. We're not looking at anybody from really outside the Atlantic bubble. Hopefully the Atlantic bubble opens up again so that we can get those travelers. But I think this year we're just really focused on supplying our Newfoundlanders with a special holiday and preparing our out-of-province people for 2022 at this point.
We need interprovincial travel to open up. I mean, we need to see Ontario, essentially. You know, that's 70% of our market, so we got to get people coming from the mainland here. I mean, the Atlantic bubble helped a bit last year also, but still, unless something changes for this year, you're not getting the volume that you need. You know, it's a 4-month season. Really, just 1 month out of those 4, so you got to have a lot of people through to make it open.
We'll talk of the Atlantic bubble there, and over the weekend, PEI Premier Dennis King believes plans are on track to reopen the Atlantic bubble in early spring. Now, the comment was made yesterday during an interview with CBC News chief political correspondent Rosemary Barton. King also spoke about loosening travel restrictions beyond the bubble.
We believe in early spring we'll have the Atlantic bubble open again, so we'll have that regional travel. And it is our intention this year in 2021, when it's safe to do so, to welcome our Canadian visitors here. And I can't wait till we're able to do that.
Well, late last month, Premier Andrew Furey said reforming the Atlantic bubble would be a long way away. But today, he said, as vaccines roll out and people recover, the bubble is something he'd consider in the medium term. But right now, he said he can commit to the concept, but it's still too early to set a reopening date.
As Dr. Fitzgerald has said many times, the only thing that's certain is the uncertainty in this. And if we could have an unanticipated outbreak, and then we'd have to reevaluate. We also need to look at, as we've said from day one, the epidemiology in other jurisdictions in the other Atlantic provinces before we would consider the bubble again.
Well, if travel does open up to the rest of the country, how will the tourists get here? Sunwing has announced they are adding some domestic flights between Toronto and Gander and Toronto and Stephenville. The move comes after other airlines have slashed routes at airports across the province. Air Canada dropped its last flight in Gander towards the end of January. Over the past year or so, Stephenville has lost a number of routes, including offerings from Porter and Sunwing. Starting in June, Sunwing plans to run 2 flights a week between Toronto and Gander and once a week between Toronto and Stephenville. Sunwing VP Deanna Murphy says they know that they're at the mercy of health regulations, but they're optimistic. And if the demand is there, the airline is willing to add more.
We actually saw a really great bump in sales, particularly from Stephenville last week. So we're very optimistic with the continued momentum increasing with a rollout of vaccinations, and we've got 3 more months to get things right.
This is International Women's Day, so it's fitting that the YWCA presented Dr. Janice Fitzgerald with the honorary 2021 Woman of Distinction Award. As Here Now's Heather Gillis reports, it's not the only tribute to Fitzgerald today.
This year we're doing things a little bit differently.
YWCA Executive Director Wendelin Schlamp says normally on International Women's Day, the YWCA holds a gala with 100 people to hand out 9 Women of Distinction Awards. But not this year, thanks to the pandemic. Instead, Schlamp presented the sole 2021 Women of Distinction Award to the woman who's been managing the pandemic, Dr. Janice Fitzgerald.
Because we've seen her every day for the past year. She's been present on all of our screens and on all of our news feeds, day in and day out, keeping us up to date with the latest information.
Hi, everybody at the St. John's YWCA.
Schlamp says in true pandemic fashion, Fitzgerald's award was presented by contactless delivery.
I was very, very honored to receive the award.
Fitzgerald says International Women's Day is near and dear to her heart, but she says she hasn't been fighting the pandemic alone. Other women have been by her side.
I would like to acknowledge the remarkable women across our healthcare system who are working to support our COVID-19 response. While I may be the face of the response to the pandemic, there are thousands of women across our province who have contributed to Newfoundland and Labrador's efforts and success.
Normally there's a nomination process for 9 Women of Distinction Award categories, but Schlamp says this year they decided to go with just 1. She says there'll be a short film out later this year to highlight past recipients. She also says the theme for this year's International Women's Day is fitting for Dr. Fitzgerald.
Women in leadership achieving an equal future in a COVID-19 world. And so,
meanwhile, organizers with the YWCA aren't the only ones honoring Fitzgerald today. Schlamp calls Fitzgerald a strong leader and a good example to women and girls, something Emily Barney, who's in grade 2, and Maria Barney in grade 5 have picked up on as they dressed up as Fitzgerald for their 100th day of school. Heather Gillis, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, a biomedical company that got its start in St. John's is getting involved in coronavirus testing. Granville Biomedical has received Health Canada approval to develop and sell nasal swabs used in COVID-19 testing. The company was launched through the Genesis Center at Memorial University. The all-female team has been working on the product for months. They say the swab is more comfortable than typical ones used in the tests.
Our main priority was, number one, the efficacy of the swab, of course. And then secondary to that was the fact that we wanted it to be a little bit more comfortable for the patients. Of course, it's never going to be perfectly comfortable. It's not a comfortable procedure. But if we can just make it a fraction more comfortable, that was what we had in mind. So ours is a singular material. It's a biocompatible medical grade resin. And the tip of the swab is actually a rounded tip. So there's a little bit less friction as it enters your nasal canal.
Okay, so the swabs are now being approved now that we're moving into the vaccination phase of the pandemic. So is it too late for Granville Biomedical to enter the game? Christine Gowdy talks about that in her interview with Peter that's coming up in about 15 minutes.
Well, both teams from Newfoundland and Labrador lost games at the Briar last night, but they were still throwing some impressive rocks.
Absolutely. Team Newfoundland and Labrador, led by skip Greg Smith, was way behind when he faced a bit of a long shot. You can actually hear him say, "Who cares? We're down 7-1. Gotta make something happen." Just take a listen.
Who cares? We're down 7-1.
Yeah,
Make something happen.
You gotta, might as well give it a go, right? 7-1.
I love his attitude.
He's got a point, Kathy.
He does.
Let her go.
There you go. A big rock from the rock. Here we go, Smith.
It's got the rotation,
Newfoundland and
too.
Labrador. Come over and up. Oh, and goodness gracious.
Come on here, I feel the need to clap.
DreamWorks throwing here. The crowd would be on their feet.
That's outstanding.
Wonderful.
Quite the shot there. Not quite enough for the comeback, unfortunately. Team Newfoundland and Labrador is still 0-4 in the series.
Yes, Team Gauju playing as Team Canada is 2-1. Both teams play again tonight at 10 o'clock Newfoundland time, 9:30 in most of Labrador. Stay with us. Your weather forecast is coming up next.
This weather update is brought to you by the Healthcare Foundation Home Lottery. Order tickets now at hcfhomelottery.ca.
Well, I'm filling in for Ashley, who's off for a couple of days, and she left us with a dandy forecast. Very nice and quiet and mostly sunny. Just have a look at the satellite and radar shot for this afternoon. It was a great day in the east, lots of sunshine, and Labrador also looking Lovely. Weather on the way, headlines calm and crisp for pretty much everyone over the next couple of days. No big weather makers to talk about until we get into midweek. That's when some snow is going to be heading towards Lab West. And as that system continues on to the island, we'll see this messy rain-snow mix. And by the time we get to Friday, it's going to be a wet one for the east. I'll get to that a little later. So let's have a look at tonight. A few flurries on the island in Labrador. Very clear, not much to see really overnight tonight. Very quiet evening. Could see a couple of light flurries maybe in the east, -5 as the overnight low for St. John's. Winds northeasterly gusting up to 20. For the rest of the island, cooler in Grand Falls, Windsor overnight tonight with some heavier cloud cover, -13 there. On the west coast, very light northwesterly winds, -6 as the overnight low, and some cloud cover as there as well. For Labrador, we're looking at some cloudy skies along the coast, -15 in Nain overnight tonight, but it's going to feel more like -24 with that wind chill. Cool as well for Labrador City with -20 as the overnight low and -27 with the wind chill, some cloud cover, and once again, some very light winds. So Tuesday, here's how things will be shaping up. Quiet as well, some cloud cover for Labrador, some clouds on the island. You can see a few flurries maybe there on the west coast, but we're looking at a lot of sunshine too. So for the St. John's metro area, looking at -5 to start your morning. Could be seeing a few flurries as you start your day, very light flurries. The winds, however, will be fairly strong, a northwesterly 30 gusting up to 50. By the time we get into the afternoon, there will be some cloud cover there, -4 as the high tomorrow, and those winds will continue on but start to ease as we head into the evening hours, and -3 as the high for the evening tomorrow. So for the rest of the Avalon Peninsula, similar story, some of those high winds through most of the day. Marystown looking at a nice sunny day, temperatures quite comfortable at 0. Some heavier cloud cover for the Clarenville area, -2 as the high there tomorrow. All of Central really looking at some heavier cloud cover throughout the day, 0 in Grand Falls, Windsor, some sunshine for Harbour Breton. For the west coast, very light winds there as well, westerly 20 kilometers an hour, and up along the coast, lots of cloud cover, but peaks of sun throughout the day as well, and some sunshine for the Humber Valley and Bay Verte area tomorrow. So up along the straits, once again, not a lot to see here, folks, except for lots of sunshine, really. St. Anthony looking at a sunny day, -3. Mary's Harbour, 0. Light winds and lots of sunshine is pretty much the story for tomorrow for most of the province. Similar story for along the northeast coast of Labrador. Westerly winds 20 gusting to 40. And for western Labrador, looking at -5 as the high tomorrow, with some cloud moving in there. So I mentioned earlier that some messier weather is moving in throughout the rest of the week. So on Wednesday, see, we have the snow that will move in for Lab West, and that will continue on to the island, bringing that messy mix, possibility of some rain for western Labrador and for some snow Thursday evening. And then as we continue on to Friday, that'll start to affect the rest of the island and as well the Avalon Peninsula. So that's Friday evening. I'll get into some more of those details a bit later.
Thanks, Carolyn. The Department of Fisheries and Oceans is responding tonight after fishermen reported finding crab inside the stomachs of seals. Processors in Fleur-de-Lis showed us the contents on Friday. 6 seals filled with crab. They say it proves that seals are feasting on crab, despite DFO saying that isn't happening. Here now's Garrett Berry explains how this has become another chapter in a long simmering dispute between fishermen and DFO. And first, a warning, some viewers might find this footage graphic.
If this is hard to look at, don't feel alone.
Take all the legs,
These processors agree, because to them,
that's money gone to waste.
A soupy mix of half-digested crab.
This is just their lunch in 24 hours.
It's not simply that these seals have been eating so much crab. Part of the problem is some of the crab that's being found inside is female. Like this one, that's full of eggs.
Fishermen can't keep female crabs, but seals apparently can.
80,000 pound times $5 a pound, $400,000. This is $400,000 right there.
So what you're seeing here A fisherman in his full career cannot fish all these crab if they came to be.
What you are seeing is also a political football.
Only this week, the Labrador got a report back from scientists that their female crab is declining. They don't know why. Well, we know why. They're in the stomachs of these seals. And DFO will not let people know that they're in there.
They invited us here and shared these pictures to take aim at DFO.
Got to go back to DFO and tell them that the science is wrong. Or they're 100% wrong. Whether they know it or not, here's the proof. Take this note.
DFO calls this not entirely surprising.
That's not unknown. We do see the crab show up in some seal stomachs. However, it's not a common occurrence.
And not entirely conclusive.
The thing to remember about any time you get reports of seal or a couple of seals here or a couple of seals there, they're eating this or they're eating that. These are all snapshots. But in order to get a sense of what they're overall eating, you really need 1,000 snapshots here or 1,000 snapshots there or 100 or whatever. It's not uncommon to get a stomach with something in it. But by itself, it doesn't tell you much about what the population overall is eating.
But now it's clear that trust is gone.
They put out a report that they checked 20,000 stomachs and they yet to find crab. We checked 6 stomachs and we got all crab. But the stomachs is never open in front of us. DFO science takes the crab stomachs back to the Marine Institute and opens them behind closed doors. We have asked for the report of what was in the stomachs. We have never got the report.
And these processors trust what's in front of them.
It's proof. You can't have no plane on this. Like this is not moose stomachs. And it's not hamburgers they're eating. This is crab.
Garrett Berry, CBC News, Fleur-de-Lis.
Well, experts say most of the province's archaeological sites are being erased by climate change. MUN archaeology professor Lisa Rankin says within the next 10 years, about 90% of all sites in the province will be under threat. Storm surges, rising sea levels, thawing permafrost, and changing vegetation are all taking a toll on the province's history. Rankin says there have been significant damage done in the past few years in places like Ferryland and Red Bay, where shorelines and parts of the sites are being washed away. The Provincial Archaeology Office is aware of some sites that are at risk, but Rankin says they can only work one area at a time.
What we really need to do as archaeologists, I think, is get a handle on where all of these sites are, how at risk they are, and then work with the communities or Indigenous governments to kind of come up with basically a triage. What sites can we save? What sites are worth saving? What sites are we willing to let go?
Well, a family in the Goulds is thanking the community for a $40,000 donation after a barn fire killed nearly 60 of their dairy cows. A fire ripped through Woodland Farm 2 weeks ago. It left farm owners Michael Din and Angelina Ryan grieving the loss of their animals. Ryan says her husband always wanted to be a farmer and poured his heart and soul into the operation. She says they managed to save the calves and 3 horses, and they're hoping to rebuild after they clean up the site and meet with insurance companies. The family wants to thank everyone who donated.
And we were just moved to tears. It was unbelievable. Like, people who don't even know us came out and just wanted to show their support for us, our family, and the farming community. Like, I can't say enough about how good they have been, as well as the first responders. Like, you wouldn't believe how good people have been.
company based in St. John's is getting involved in coronavirus testing. Health Canada has approved the Granville swab. The creators say the swab is more comfortable than a typical swab used in a COVID-19 test. The company is co-founded by two women, so International Women's Day seems like a good time to check in with them. Christine Gowdy is the head of Granville Biomedical, and she's in Halifax. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us about your swab. What makes it different from the one that, at this point, more than 100,000 people in Newfoundland and Labrador have been exposed to?
Yeah, so traditionally in healthcare, you'll see the flock tip swab. So it looks like it has a bit of a soft tip on the edge of it. And we just saw some issues with those. They're deceivingly comfortable looking, but the fact remains that when you touch the tip of some of those swabs, there's a sharp point within that flock tip. So our main priority was, number one, the efficacy of the swab, of course. And then secondary to that was the fact that we wanted it to be a little bit more comfortable for the patients. Of course, it's never going to be perfectly comfortable. It's not a comfortable procedure. But if we can just make it a fraction more comfortable, that was what we had in mind. So ours is a singular material. It's a biocompatible medical grade resin. And the tip of the swab is actually a rounded tip. So there's a little bit less friction as it enters your nasal canal.
Okay, so as part of developing this, how many times did you have one of these swabs up your nose?
I think I'm up to about 5 times at this point, and I've tried the traditional swabs, and I've also been swabbed with our Granville swab. I did find ours more comfortable with 0 residual pain afterwards, but that is, of course, just my opinion. But it was exciting for us to try the Granville swab on ourselves, and myself and Crystal were swabbed with these last month.
So what's the cost difference for the health authorities that are buying tens of thousands of these swabs?
We noticed that there was a huge surge in pricing as COVID started to emerge and then as it carried on. So what we want to do right now is continue the pre-COVID pricing of swabs. We feel like we can still enter the market at a competitive price point, staying true to who we are and competitive in terms of pricing and positioning. So we're going to come and net out somewhere in the mid-range of what people were paying previously for COVID swabs.
So how much of the work on developing and manufacturing these swabs is being done here in the province?
Our headquarters are in St. John's. That's where we do a lot of our work. But we're keeping all of our design, manufacturing, and sterilization within the country, and that was a main priority for us. We're looking at securing supply chains long-term for Health Canada and the country, and that was a major priority for the team.
So the swabs will be made in Canada, but not necessarily in Newfoundland and Labrador?
That's right, that's right.
So how many of these have you sold? What are the orders like, and are they going to be used in Newfoundland and Labrador?
Yeah, we hope so. You know, we're having conversations right now with some provincial representatives, federal representatives. We really want to see our swab integrated into the Canadian system and various healthcare authorities. You know, the push right now is for Made in Canada, and we exactly exemplify that. We're a Made in Canada product. We launched the company officially about a week ago, and we have a lot of interest, a lot of inquiries, a lot of pre-orders. Right now we're ramping up production, and we should be ready to start distributing within the next couple of weeks.
We keep hearing from the Chief Medical Officer of Health and health officials in this province that the lights at the end of the tunnel, we're ramping up vaccines, that by the summer things could start becoming back to normal. Do you worry that you might be a little late in the game, that we're going to start seeing less and less testing as more and more people are vaccinated?
We are a little bit late to the game, but they're predicting right now that the next 12 to 24 months, we're going to see continued swabbing and testing, screening, and as the new variants emerge, and we're seeing them come in from the UK, South Africa, I think this time we want to be ahead of it, and I think swabbing is going to keep increasing because of that.
Well, thank you very much for joining me, and good luck.
Thank you so much.
Well, research suggests women have been bearing the brunt of the work challenges that began with the pandemic. As we mark International Women's Day, there are concerns that gains women have made in recent decades may have been reversed. Jacqueline Hansen spoke with women across Canada about the difficulties they faced in this past year and what it means for their careers.
We've spoken with more than a dozen women over the past few weeks about the impact the pandemic has had on their industries, their careers, and their ability to do work. We know that there are hundreds of thousands of women who lost their jobs during the pandemic and are still out of work. There are also some women across all sectors and at all levels who feel forced to face a choice to step back from their careers. And that's largely because mothers have not only been navigating how to work during this pandemic, but they've also taken on roles such as teaching assistant, daycare, aftercare, and even playmate. Statistics Canada did a mid-pandemic survey and found that nearly 2/3 of women were primarily responsible for homeschooling and helping with homework, and they're also still doing most household tasks.
It's really, really difficult to do it all and be expected to basically, work all day at home, be at home with your kids, be a teacher.
I felt that I had to quit. I had to choose. I had to choose a full-time career or my mental health and what's important to me and my family.
A survey of Canadian and U.S. workers by McKinsey & Company earlier on in the pandemic found that of the women surveyed, 1 in 4 said they were considering stepping back from their careers or leaving the workplace entirely. So we spoke with a senior partner at McKinsey & Company, and she said that there is the potential for the pandemic to actually change things for the better.
The potential silver lining here is greater flexibility in the workplace in the long term. And that's so important because the number one thing women would describe historically that would help them be more competitive in the workplace was greater flexibility and reimagining of many of the roles in organizations and how that work got done.
But she says there's a risk if companies don't step up and make changes to support women, that we could lose a generation of women in the workforce, and that not only would it have an impact on those women personally, but on equity and representation in the workplace, as well as on the economy as a whole. Jacqueline Hansen, CBC News, Toronto.
Really let down because he's been through something similar.
From rifts within the family to the intense pressures of royal life, Harry and Meghan are telling all in an explosive interview. That's up next. Welcome back to Here and Now. If all goes well, we could be moving to another alert level this coming weekend. As this latest outbreak gets contained, people are starting to wonder when things might go back to the way they were before. For example, when can sports teams play again, and when can we hang out with our friends? Well, today Dr. Janice Fitzgerald warns that as the province opens up, some things may not go back to the way they were.
We need to try to reduce the ways in which people come together and gather and are in situations where there is potentially lots of people who can get infected should another variant of concern be out there undetected. And so we have to consider that sports teams in particular are a way that can happen. We saw that it was a way that it happened previously, and so we have to think about that moving forward. The risk is different now. The risk is not the same as what it was before. The variants of concern are it's like dealing with a different virus, really. It's they're more contagious, and we've certainly seen in that kind of a situation where you can end up with a super spreader event. So we do have to be more cautious, I think, moving forward, and we can't assume that we can just go back to exactly the way it was before. It would be, I think, it wouldn't be good of us to sort of go through what we've just gone through and learn the things we did about this variant and then not really change the way that we do things. We all need to think about the way that we socialize and the way that we will continue to socialize going forward until we get to a point where we feel that enough people have been vaccinated, that the vaccine is giving us the protection that we need, and that we can take away some of those public health measures. That's going to take a little bit of time, and I understand that everybody is really tired. We're all tired too. But I really do feel that the light at the end of the tunnel is getting brighter, and I think we just need to hold on for a little bit longer, and we all need to think about things a little bit differently going forward.
We'll turn now to a rare royal interview. Oprah Winfrey's highly anticipated exclusive with Meghan Markle and Prince Harry on U.S. TV last night contained one bombshell after another, revelations that some suggest are as seismic and as potentially damaging to the royal family as Princess Diana's stunning 1995 interview about 3 people being in her marriage. Their 2-hour tell-all exclusive came in 2 parts. First, Meghan on her own, then Harry joining in on the conversation. The interview exposed suicidal thoughts, apparent racism in the palace, and deeply strained relations with other senior royals. Meghan says it all started happening once the pair were wed. The CBC's Tessa Arcilia has more.
I mean, it was brutally frank. They wanted to speak their truth, and now they have, and this is expected to send shockwaves through the monarchy if it hasn't already. I mean, we have bits and pieces of those clips that had come out. It had aired in the U.S. Tonight here in the U.K. You know, they painted a really bleak and difficult picture of life within the palace walls, and now we're knowing that we're finding out from Meghan herself how deeply and severely it had impacted her in a negative way. Take a listen to what she told Oprah about her mental state.
I just didn't want to be alive anymore. And that was a very clear and real and frightening, constant thought. And I remember how he just cradled me.
I mean, conversations around suicide and suicidal thoughts, Heather. I mean, this sounded really raw. It was difficult, and these were dark moments for Meghan. She said she had sought help but didn't feel supported. Harry echoing that sentiment in that interview, and he also expressed his worries that the history could be repeating itself. Obviously, referring to his mother, excuse me. Now, the other big revelation is something that is a bigger topic that goes beyond the royal family, beyond palace walls. It goes right into the heart of an issue that affects society. Take a listen to what else Meghan had to say.
The conversation of he won't be given security, he's not going to be given a title, and also concerns and conversations about how dark his skin might be when he's born.
I mean, the moment Meghan became a part of Prince Harry's life, race had already been part of the conversation here, and now we're hearing of a darker side of that conversation. There were no indications, of course, they're not going to reveal who exactly said these, made these comments.
He did not share the identity with me, but he wanted to make sure that I knew, and if I had an opportunity to share it, that it was not his grandmother nor his grandfather that were a part of those conversations.
We talked about strained relations. We knew there were tensions in the family, but now we're hearing about just how bad it got. Let's take a listen to what Prince Harry said.
I feel really let down because he's been through something similar.
Your family cut you off?
Yeah, in the first quarter of 2020.
I mean, there are reactions from different places. Of course, we looked at the British press, the tabloid headlines. I mean, a lot of it picked up on those two big points about the color of the skin of baby Archie and also those suicidal thoughts of Meghan. These were splashed on the headlines. Everybody commenting on how explosive and big and shocking these comments are. But there are also criticism of the couple calling this interview that they did in the first place as self-serving, you know, wanting to just get more publicity on this.
I'm sickened by what I've just had to watch.
Okay, a number of people might be upset.
Sorry, you can
and
come to
moved by
you can
what they
defend
heard.
it in a minute. I'm just going to say what I'm going to say.
Okay.
This is a 2-hour trash-a-thon of our royal family, of the monarchy, of everything the Queen has worked so hard for, and it's all being done as Prince Philip lies in hospital.
A few interesting tidbits before we go on this point. They had gotten married 3 days before the big wedding in private, and also they had announced in this interview that they are expecting a baby girl.
Well, that was Tessa Arcilia reporting from London.
The trial of the former police officer charged in the death of George Floyd has been delayed. Floyd died while he was being arrested in Minneapolis last May. Jury selection in the case was supposed to start today, but legal arguments about the exact charges have put that on pause. The CBC's Susan Ormiston has the latest details from Minneapolis.
10 months after the brutal killing of George Floyd here in Minneapolis, with a police officer kneeling on his neck, the trial of that officer, Derek Chauvin, got underway. Chauvin is charged with second-degree murder and manslaughter in Floyd's death. The trial was actually paused today as the court deliberated adding a third-degree murder charge. The state arguing the trial can't proceed until that is resolved, so prospective jurors were told to go home for now. Hundreds of demonstrators have been out here for much of the day fighting for justice, and for them, the only just result in this case is a conviction. This has been peaceful, but the city is on edge, anxious that this trial, televised minute by minute, will provoke high emotions. And the courthouse is surrounded by cement barricades, high fencing, concertina wire. The Minnesota National Guard has been called up, an estimated $36 million spent on security. These demonstrators say they're going to be out here every day of this long trial. We don't expect a verdict till maybe mid-April or the end of April. And the courtroom itself is very restricted because of COVID. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, Minneapolis.
Welcome back to Here and Now. Continuing with international news, the Pope has ended his historic making trip to Iraq. His 4-day visit was the first ever to the country by a pope. Francis flew back to the Vatican from Baghdad earlier today. During his visit, he met with Christian and Muslim leaders, including the powerful Shia cleric Grand Ayatollah al-Sistani. The Pope also went to Mosul. The city had been an ISIS stronghold to preach peaceful coexistence. It was the Pope's first international trip since the start of the pandemic.
Time now for a look at the long-range forecast, but we're going to start with a quick recap of how things are shaping up for tomorrow. Looking like a really nice day for most of us tomorrow. For St. John's, could see a few morning flurries, -3 as the high. It's going to be fairly breezy, a northwesterly wind, 30 gusting to 50 tomorrow, but otherwise we're looking at mostly cloudy day. For the Marystown area, looking at some sunshine, 0 as the high there, some cloud cover for central areas, and for western Newfoundland, looking at some light winds there and some cloud cover, -1 as the high in Corner Brook. For the rest, or for Labrador, I should say, lots of sunshine along the coast there, -4 in Cartwright with some light winds. Labrador City looking at some cloud cover moving in, so it'll be a bit of a gray day, and things will start to change for Labrador West on Wednesday. You can see a few flurries here on the northern peninsula, but we do have a system moving through for western Labrador, bringing some snow with it. It's a system that Environment Canada is going to be keeping their eye on over the next couple of days. Will persist into Wednesday evening, but for the rest of the province, looking at lots of sunshine for Wednesday. Could see a few flurries on the west coast there, but temperatures not bad, all above 0 pretty much on the island. And for Labrador, -2 in Cartwright, 1 degree in Lab City with that snowfall. Now looking ahead to Thursday, you can see as the system pushes through, the snow will continue down to southeastern Labrador and start to affect parts of the island, particularly in the west. Some showers moving through, so that's where we're going to see a bit of a messy mix. St. John's, though, on Thursday, sunshine and 3 degrees. Not too bad. For the rest of the island, you'll see as the system starts to move through that messy mix for Grand Falls, Windsor, Corner Brook, and up through the northern peninsula, as well as the rest of Labrador. Lab City looking at 1 degree as the high on Thursday. So Thursday overnight into Friday, that's when we're going to start to see this system in the east. Mostly rain, it looks like it's going to be. So the snow that's down could be taking a hit on Friday, particularly because the temperature is supposed to be bumping up to 5 degrees on Friday. As we get into Saturday, though, some flurries pushing through for central areas. Looking at that messy mix, as I mentioned, through to Friday, and some flurries on Saturday. Western Newfoundland, pretty much the same sort of story, but temperatures fairly nice. High winds for Thursday as that system comes through as well. For southeastern Labrador, looking at a windy day on Thursday and some snow on Friday and flurries on Saturday. For western Labrador, everything starts to clear off nicely on Saturday as those temperatures dip down again. And have a look at our weather viewer photo of the day. This one put a smile on my face. I hope it puts a smile on your face too. With all the sunshine we've been enjoying today, I'm sure lots of people have been out on their decks enjoying that. Probably not as much though as Pamela Thomas. Thank you so much, Pamela, for bringing this taste of spring to our lives. And if you have a weather photo you'd like to share, just send it to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
What a great photo there.
Excellent. And before we go, Peter, just have a question because something caught my ear today. Dr. Haggie talked about today being the 1-year anniversary of the pandemic.
Yeah, so he said this is day 365 of the pandemic. He was referring to the start of briefings, although that would have put it on a Sunday. So anyway, there are lots of dates to talk about. I think the big one that a lot of people are going to be looking at, the 14th was the first case in this province. The 18th was the lockdown. So there'll be lots of pandemic anniversary stories coming up.
Yeah, lots of memories. Thanks so much, Peter, and thanks to everyone at home for watching tonight.
Have a great night.